Ever wonder, how do you keep your inventory looking fresh? Great question by Triple Creek Farm Greenhouse. They asked that very question. How do I keep inventory looking fresh? I tell you, I have 10 tips for you. The first thing is to obviously rotate and re-merchandise your inventory a lot, because you want to make sure that you're showcasing your new items, your seasonal items, trending products, and keeping it all very visually interesting. And I love to share the story of Zara and how their average customer visits their store 17 times in a year. 17 times in a year. The average store, I'm not saying your store is average, but your customer visits you 3 or 4 times a year. Your average customer, like when you average everything, it's 3 or 4 times a year. Why does Zara get people in 17 times a year? Because their inventory always looks fresh. They actually merchandise a couple times a week. Now, I know that's not necessarily realistic to do it, but their customer knows that every single time they come into that store, it's going to look new, it's going to look fresh, it's going to look exciting. And the thing is that we sort of even stop seeing the displays in our store and the upper displays and some of that stuff because we're just in the store all the time and there's a million other things to do, right? So for sure, once a month, and even more often if you can, even if you just do like when you first walk in and you see that first table that's there, the speed bump that I like to call it, that should be changed once a week for sure. The only way that I found to keep track of it was to have a schedule of how often everything should be changed. That's the right way to do it. So another thing that's super critical is to make sure that every area of the store is also maintained, that it's clean, that it's not full of dust and bugs and all that stuff. And the only way to manage that also is the same way. I would divide my store into 5 sections or 7 sections is what we tell our clients to do. And then every day is a different section. And so then you can have your team, when customers aren't there, a rare occurrence I know, you can have them re-merchandise and clean the area, right? Just make it a system, because when it's a system, you don't have to worry about it, right? So that's the important thing. Okay, so another thing that's also really helpful to make things look new and fresh is making sure that you create focal points in your displays, like it's not just a whole bunch of stuff, but there's something that the eye is really drawn to, either because of where it's located, like is it the peak of something, or is it a color that stands out from everything else, or is it a large Easter bunny because it's Easter time, or a pumpkin, or whatever it is. This draws customers' attentions to that specific thing. Another thing is to make sure that you've identified your highest margin and best-selling products, and don't forget to also feature them. So often what can happen is that we have so much inventory moving in and out that you're always featuring the new stuff and you forget about some of your best sellers. So make sure that you have those items also, that you schedule a time to make sure that you have those items featured in your merchandising. So the 5th one is to match your marketing with your merchandising. So whatever it is that you're pushing that week on social media, whatever it is that you're talking about, make sure that those items are on your speed bump when people first walk in the door. That's critical. It makes it look very cohesive. You know how I'm a nerd about consumer psychology. And what happens so often is that people will see something on Instagram or Facebook or something, and then it reminds them to come into your store. And then they walk into your store and they honestly, this is a fact, often don't even remember why they're there. They don't know what drove them there. But then if they see the item that they saw on social media, they see that right in front of them, and they're like, oh yeah, I saw this online, I really liked it. See what I'm saying? So make sure that your marketing matches your merchandising. In our sales breakthrough system, in our Retail Mavens coaching program, we talk about having a system for all of that, because it just makes everything in your life easier. So now 6, make sure that you're including seasonal items. I would bet that most of you do that already. You just do that instinctively. But did you know that when you do that, it makes people respond more emotionally to the items than if they just see a collection of merchandise there? If they see Easter bunny with it, a Christmas tree or whatever, they actually have an emotional response to that. So then the 7th thing is you also want to create interactive experiences sometimes. Is there the vendor that you have, do they have a video on YouTube that perhaps you can put on an iPad and have showing that all the time, or put a sign up saying hit play to see the video about this? Or what else could you do like that to get people to interact with the merchandise? Samples. Oh my goodness, samples. You won't sell food unless you sample it. Like demonstrations. Is there a way that they can play with it? If like a toy store might have an art project out there, when you see a customer looking at it, say, hey, let's play with that. And then they get more involved with it. Then they can see who on their list that could help and that could serve. So 8 is make sure that you're also paying attention when you're in the store to What customers, is there one display that they're reacting to more than others? The ninth tip is to make sure that you're training your team to help you with these steps, because I would want my team to also tell me if customers are interacting with one display or more than another. And often the way you find that that's true is because you sell out of the items that are in that display fast. So make sure that you're talking to your team about that and you're asking them, I want to know, like, what do you think they like and what are we selling out of? Okay, the last one. Don't forget the importance of cross-merchandising items. It's very typical, like take a sweater or something and then you'd put jewelry with it, right? That kind of thing is pretty natural. But also don't hesitate to mix. If you carry gifts and clothing, mix those two things up. You know, put a robe up there, and with the robe or the PJs, include a coffee mug or include a book. And then signage. Signage is another super critical thing that really helps people get in the mood, right? Something about a cozy morning, and then you have the components of that cozy morning right in front of them. So those are my top 10 tips for keeping inventory looking fresh and exciting. Let me know which of these tips you implement. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You know, we're happy to help here. Happy retailing.